Welcome to the Scott My Show, a podcast where we talk about bodybuilding, health improvement, and physique enhancement. Before we get into the show, I just wanted to let you know that I do offer one-on-one coaching. If you're interested in working with me, I offer personalized coaching where I can help you reach your goals, whether it be fat loss, building muscle, improving your health, or all the above. I provide tailored nutrition, training, and supplementation advice, one or all of those together, with 24/7 ongoing support to help you every step of the way with any questions you may have. If you're interested, you can DM me on Instagram, click the link in my profile to fill out a form, or ask any questions you may have. Also, we can hop on a free consult call where we can go over your goals, answer questions, and discuss what it would look like to work together. This episode is brought to you by LMNT Electrolytes. This month, we're switching it up with an exclusive offer that's only for VIP LMNT partners, including Carnivorecast listeners. You can now receive this free sample pack along with any regular purchase when you use my custom link, which is provided in the show notes or my Instagram link in bio. That's drinklmnt.com/carnivorecast, all one word. And as I said, I'll include the link in the show notes. LMNT electrolytes are convenient, evidence-based, and delicious. And get yours today to help support the show. Thank you. This is a quick disclaimer before we start the show. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said here should be taken as medical advice. And please consult with your physician before making any changes to your diet, exercise regime, or medications. Thank you, and on to the show. All right. Today we've got a three-way podcast with my good friends Mike and Paul. If you guys haven't checked it out already, Mike and Paul are both excellent coaches, and we both had fantastic episodes with each of them. So please go back and listen to those. But today we're all getting on together and catching up. So how's it going, guys?
It's good, man. How are you?
Good, good. Um, I'm all right. Marissa's in Dublin this week. She gets back today. I think she just landed. So I've been on double dog duty and just like a doctor's appointment every day. So it's been a little bit crazy, but
Right on.
good. What's going on with you, Paul?
Nothing much. I'm just on a little weekend away right now up north, northern Michigan.
Nice.
As far as bodybuilding goes, I'm starting a blast pretty soon here. Starting
Cool.
to reverse calories up out of a cut. Sitting around 214 right now, hoping to put on some pretty good stage weight. And I talked to Kuza last week at my last check-in and kind of laid out a timeline for the next time I'm going to step on stage. And we're looking at a qualifier in Michigan in late May to early June next year, and then try and hit junior nationals.
How far apart
Very
would that
nice.
be?
Just be 2 weeks between the qualifier and the
Okay.
qualifier.
Is
Nice.
junior nationals, do they have like classic or men's physique go earlier in the week, like North Americans, or
I'm not sure. NPC hasn't released the
okay.
for it yet. I'm sure they'll
Yeah,
release it closer to the show.
sure. Yeah, I was similarly talking to Dom about doing North Americans next year. I was looking at the local shows and there's one 2 weeks before, but it's actually like 9 or 10 days before because
Yeah.
Classic goes on like Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah.
So
Classic is
this
early in
might
the
be
week.
something you want to think about.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Dom has all that.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah. I mean, even if it is a 9 or 10 day turnaround, it's not too terrible.
Yeah.
No, no, that'll be fine.
Assuming like, I mean, it's not like you're gonna have a ton of fat to come off in that time frame in between.
Yeah.
So it's just about doing the
Ideally,
peak
we
again.
go into the national qualifier pretty tight and
Yeah.
just make small
Yeah.
improvements in the peak
Yeah.
for junior nationals.
That's cool. Um, and how'd you pick junior nationals?
It's just a really good timeline for me. I'd rather go sooner rather than later. I'm getting the itch. It's
Yeah.
been 2 years since my last show, so
Yeah.
Cool.
I think over this next bulk, I think I can put on some really good size. I'm really close. I
Yeah.
think if I prepped right now, I'd probably be like 10 pounds under the cap. So if I can put on another 5 pounds of stage weight um, over this next bulk, then I'll be in good shape.
Cool.
I think I can do it. I mean, I really haven't escalated my doses that much. The most I've ever taken is like 1.3 grams total.
Yeah.
Probably getting a
It's
little bit
nothing.
higher than that this time. Yeah. So based on the response to that small amount, it's looking pretty good if we start to push things.
Yeah.
Nice.
And are you still thinking men's physique or classic, or are you more
You
settled on
know,
classic?
I I might do both. I might even do bodybuilding. We'll see.
Cool.
I'd probably be pretty small in heavies, and I could probably make the cap for light heavies. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Like middle of prep, I'll make that call. But I wouldn't be opposed to doing all three.
Is there
Nice.
a weight class for men's physique at amateurs, or is that only pros?
There is, but I don't know what it is, and it's definitely lighter than classic.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Very nice.
Any coaching updates you want to share?
Yeah, I actually just had a guy who was lifestyle with the intention to compete. Um, we were cutting him down for like 14 weeks, figuring out some estrogen stuff and some digestion stuff. And last week, when I was with Mike in Pittsburgh, I was looking at his check-in and I was like, damn, he's like 6 to 8 weeks out right now. And I
Wow.
asked him, I was like, dude, I know you want to compete in the future, but why don't you pick a show? I think you could be ready pretty soon here. So he was like, all right, let's do it. So I got him, he's 7 weeks out from a show in San Antonio right now, and he's ahead of schedule.
That's
So
awesome.
that'll be
Nice.
the first competitor that I have on stage. He'll be doing men's physique and classic. So
Nice. That's
yeah, pretty
exciting.
excited about it.
Congrats. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike? What's up in your world? Are you
Um,
moving next week?
yeah, so the pod gets dropped off today. So I get
Okay.
it for a week and then it gets delivered a week after that. So I'll
Okay.
leave my current house 7 days from now, actually,
Wow.
which is exciting.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm moving to Charleston, South Carolina, or right outside Charleston. It's one of the suburbs, um, which I'm fired up about. There's a lot of, good bodybuilding culture there. Where I live now, I'm in southwestern Virginia. There's a bodybuilder here, like a single one. And
And
you
his name's
know
Mike.
that, um, and like the best gym is like a 40-minute drive each way from my house. And you can ask anyone that lives in a college town. Really, the only thing to do here is to drink. And if you're living that bodybuilding lifestyle and you don't really care for drinking, it ends up having you pretty isolated, just in your house most of the time. So I'm really looking forward to a fresh start. There's some good bodybuilding gyms in the area that I'm excited to start training at that have, good equipment, good atmosphere. So my training's been pretty stagnant for a little while, just haven't really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
I think largely due to environmental factors. It's really not anything else. So I'm looking forward to having, kind of some fresh air breathed into training again.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Then as far as like coaching stuff goes, I had two of my clients do North Americans.
Yeah.
So Casey was fifth in figure A, which is really cool. So it was her first time at a national showing. This was our first season together. I started working with Casey about 2 years ago, when I was living in the Philadelphia area. Uh, what's really cool about me working with Casey, she started working with me when I had like sub 10 clients really, and I
Wow.
hadn't produced at all. Um, and she just like took I guess like a leap of faith by working with me. So I was really happy to see that get pulled together for her because it's been a long road to get here. Really the last show she did before I started coaching her, her only feedback was she needed to get bigger.
Mhm.
Um, and we did that. So she was, I believe, 7 pounds heavier than her last show.
Wow.
Uh, and for sure more conditioned. She looked great at the show she did with a previous coach, but even sharper now, like to the point where she was having like lines in her glutes in our check-ins, which was really cool to see. Um, and in the call out, in the top five girls, she was, I would say, the most conditioned up there. Um, she just got outsized mostly in her upper back and her delts.
Okay.
So luckily for us and as a coach, you kind of like knowing that you couldn't have done much better for your athlete the week of the show, because it's not like I can magically put muscle on you. There's no feedback about conditioning or about a peak or about how full or dry she looked. It was just get more muscle.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
so
awesome.
obviously, like, no one likes taking anything other than first. But we have to kind of reframe when you're going to these national shows. Um, Being first call out is still pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
That's great. Yeah,
yeah,
she looks awesome.
yeah.
How, or yeah, go ahead if you want to talk about Kaylin as well.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Kaylin. So Kaylin, really exciting. So she is a wellness competitor. She was in wellness class B. She was eighth, I believe. So she was like just top of the second call out. Um, so she'd be eighth or ninth. Uh, and again, this is her first national showing. She actually did her first ever show 2 weeks before North Americans.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So she's really green to it. She's very young. She's only 22. Um, and again, uh, the we just need more size. Her conditioning was great. Her peak was good. Very happy with that. We just need more size. So, bigger glutes, bigger legs, and then I want to work on bringing up like abdominal development, just so that way we can get some more pop in her
Cool.
abs the next time we compete. But super stoked for both of them. Um, Definitely bright futures for them both.
Yeah. And they both won overalls at,
Yeah, yeah. So they both won overalls at their local show. Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah,
How did you, so one thing I find so interesting about female categories is they all have different requirements for the level of conditioning and
yeah,
fullness.
yeah,
How did you like think about that and like know where it should be? Like with men,
yeah,
it just seems simpler. It's like be as conditioned as possible. Whereas
yeah,
like with women, you
yeah.
don't want to be too much. So
So with Kaylin, at the beginning of the week, I would actually argue she was like too lean. She had way too many hard lines in her. Um, so we actually, I don't want to say we had to spill her, but we really fed her up so she was really, really full and not as dry. So we also kept her water decently high. Um, I believe the lowest it got to was four liters. And then like on show day, I think she had 4.5 liters. Um, and as far as like kind of, I feel like the from season to season, it almost feels like that the conditioning that judges want and the look can kind of fluctuate. It depends
yeah.
on the judges, it depends on the show, it depends on the season. Um, so what I like to do and what I did for both of them was I looked at last year's North American winners for their class,
Mm,
and I tried to emulate close to that level of conditioning,
cool.
but then also pay attention to the national shows that happened this season and see where the girls were getting rewarded.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the really the best way I think to do it. Also, I have like really, really great, other coaches in my corner that I can bounce them off of. So like Dom Kuza, who you've had on here, coaches all three of us. Um, he's been a mentor of mine for like 2 years. So I was bouncing a lot off him, with both the girls, the week of and the weeks leading into the show. Same thing with Mike Nassif and Taylor Moore. Mike is one of or is Dom's assistant coach, and he's one of the Camp Jansen guys now. Um, and then Taylor is another really great coach. He mentored with Dom, mentored with Cam Cheek. So he knows a lot as well. So if I am ever in a spot where I'm like, I don't know if this is the right decision, or maybe I just want like a second set of eyes, a second opinion, they're some of the people I go to. And then as well, like, in person, Paul was with me the last few days of their peak. So I would just be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. This is like, they're at this point. I want them to be closer to this point. Here's how I think I'm going to get there. What do you think? So there's a decent bit of checks and balances as well with that decision making, which is always helpful.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really, really smart and very interesting. Um, and I guess, Paul, was this your first time at North Americans?
Yeah, it was my first time at any national show.
Okay. What'd you think?
It was really cool to see the difference in level between the regional level and the national level and what it really takes to get there.
Mm,
Uh, Not only for myself, but for people that I'll coach in the future, knowing what it takes to get there, the level of conditioning, the level of poise they have to have on stage, seeing how other coaches operate at that level was really enlightening, and I think it was really valuable information, especially having being alongside Mike the entire way. Obviously, he's a great coach. I definitely learned a lot just through that experience, just through osmosis and being there and being in that environment.
cool. What do you think of how the show was run?
It was pretty snappy. It was the expediters did not mess around. The athletes were all very professional, so it was a very well run show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perspective.
Dude, it was great. On Saturday, the day of wellness in bikini, I think they had like over 600 people. I think something like bikini had 350 competitors, and I think wellness had 250. Um, I think a little more than that in each one. But dude, we were out of the night show. I mean, we had time to get like a reasonably timed dinner. Like we were eating dinner by what, 8:30 or
Yeah, I
something
think we
like
were out
that.
of the show by like 7:30.
Yeah, yeah.
They
Uh,
did a great job.
they were really great. And I know like, at these national shows, they use like the Muscleware app. I know a lot of people really dislike it, but I think it's good to keep still just to like get track of the pacing.
Mm,
Um, because, you might see, okay, I'm 8 classes away from being on stage, and you might think like, oh, that's an hour and a half. But in reality, that might be 40 minutes.
mm,
So it's important to get a gauge of the pace for earlier in the day. And the way like this show works is I know at local shows, pretty much when you're lining up, you're next to go out generally.
yeah.
But here it's like you have the people on stage, the people on deck, third out, and then lined up.
Yeah.
So
That's
you're used to hearing like, okay, wellness A, line up, and then that means your girl goes on stage in the next 10 minutes. Whereas now it's like, okay, wellness A, line up. It might be 20 or closer to like, maybe 30 minutes,
yeah.
depending on the pacing and the size of all the call outs. Um, but I think they did a really great job running it.
Did they judge it all at finals?
I think for maybe some of like the top two or three placings they may have in some of the classes, but definitely not all of them. And it wasn't very frequent. I think a lot of that kind of stuff is decided in that morning
Yeah.
show. And if anything, they're just maybe confirming that their decision later in the day.
Yeah. Makes sense.
They did do so for most classes, they were only giving out pro cards to top four overall. So they were judging overall at the night shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were they doing did they do routines morning and finals or just finals?
It depends on where you were in the call out. So I'm trying to remember. I didn't watch a ton of the men's. A lot of the men's stuff I only went to the night show, so I didn't see the morning. But they were doing their routines at night, I believe. And then with the girls, if you were first call out, you did your presentation round. Um, but if you're a second, I don't believe you did. If you're
Okay.
second call out or third or fourth, I don't believe you
Okay.
did a presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it was at the amateur show I did. It was just um in the morning it was comparisons, everything, judging.
Yeah.
At night you did your routine once. So if
Mhm.
you're in multiple classes or multiple categories, you just did one routine. And then they basically pulled you on stage to give you awards.
Mhm.
And then they only did comparisons for the overalls.
Okay. Yeah. Dude, I don't know about you, Paul. I was very, very impressed by the Masters turnout in men and women. Um, like,
Yeah, I heard it was crazy.
dude, some of the like the 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds that were there were insanely jacked, like
Yeah.
very impressive. Like, not just with that qualifier of like jacked for a 60-year-old, they were just regardless of age, jacked, and it was sick. It's
Yeah,
very, very cool to see that. Like,
it's really
I know
cool.
there's a cliche people always say, like, the stage is always there, it's never too late, this, that, the other, but I mean, you have 60-year-olds still winning their pro cards and stuff. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was I will say, especially for the women, some of the wellness competitors that were masters like 45 and down could have held their own in the open
Yeah.
Wow. Do you think, do you guys think that picking a show, either as a client or as a coach for your clients, picking a show based on how well it's run is a good idea? Or do you think that should be a secondary consideration to timeline?
I think it's a great idea
Yeah.
to show based on how well it's run, because then, like as a coach, that gives you a better idea of the timeline to stage and when to feed clients up, when to tell them to pump up. That just makes things a lot smoother on show day.
Yeah. Yeah. Mike, Dom was like, don't do Universe because it's poorly run.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that before. Who runs that show? Actually, I don't know if we should spell names.
Yeah.
But I know like the Gary Udit shows are all really good. So
Yeah. But
I'm based out of Virginia right now, and a lot of my competitors are in Virginia. So he does a lot of like Virginia, Delaware, and like the Maryland, Pennsylvania
cool.
shows. So I have been to mostly Gary Udit shows, and they're all ran really, really well.
Well, I think it's interesting because at least the people helping around the stage, I don't know if
Mhm.
the actual producer of the show, those were the same people who did my show, who
Yeah.
did the universe.
Yeah.
And my show was run extremely well.
Okay.
It might just be like there are so like thousands, like just like North Americans, thousands of people.
Yeah.
And the venue for the universe and my show is like this small hotel.
Is
Like
that where we were for the New York Pro?
yeah, there isn't like a
Oh yeah.
backstage,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
like a conference room where you go to get glazed, and then the small hallway between that conference room and the stage is
Mhm.
the backstage. Like
Yeah.
it's it's hard when you're doing a huge show in a venue like that.
Yeah. One of the biggest things I've learned this season, especially, bring like a camping chair with you or like a yoga mat or something for the back
Yeah,
room.
yeah,
Because some shows have had stuff where in the back room they have seating for competitors,
yeah,
but then some places it's just find a spot on the floor and lay down.
yeah,
So I saw a couple guys with like those folding camping chairs, like those zero gravity chairs where you
yeah,
can kind of lay back. And I
yeah,
was like, that might be the move to
yeah,
start bringing that for shows.
yeah. Even at tanning, like you
Yeah.
might be waiting there, either sitting on the floor or standing for a long
Yeah.
time. Yes, my good friend Mike Lakamowski, he's spiritual gainster on Instagram. He's like a
Mhm.
really good photographer and
Mhm.
classic physique competitor. He helped me a ton with posing and just life leading up to my show.
Yeah.
And he gave me all this advice for backstage. And
Yeah.
one of them was like, bring a sleeping bag or a cushion or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Did you, you, so did you guys watch The Men at all?
I watched so I watched basically if I had any of my buddies had a client in the show, I was going to watch it.
Okay.
So like I mentioned, my buddy Taylor, he had a men's physique guy, so I watched that.
Okay.
And then Dom had a classic physique competitor, and then he had an open competitor who ended up winning his card, Joey.
Hmm.
Um, so I watched them, but I didn't go to morning show, I believe, for any of them, just because I was with the girls in the morning, and then at night I'd go over to watch.
How about you, Paul?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get there until Thursday night. So I did see Joey win his card. That was awesome.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I did not see Physique or Classic.
Yeah.
That would have been really cool to see for myself,
Yeah.
Yeah,
obviously being a Classic Physique competitor. But that's okay. I
Yeah.
uh, I couldn't get the day off of the regular job, so
Yeah.
it is
The
what it
the guy who won the classic overall, he was, here, I'll show a picture of him. He was like very lean.
yeah,
Um, like he looks great, obviously, but I didn't think he was like jaw dropping in terms of structure or
yeah,
shape compared to some of the other guys I've seen win national level classic physique shows.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
yeah, I think this was a shape decision. I think his shape is actually really good. I see the potential there. Obviously needs some legs from the front, a little more quad, a little more adductor, a little more arms, but I think his shape is fantastic.
Okay.
I think he looks very much like a young Austin Espy.
Yeah.
Like it's a very striking similarity, even in kind
Yeah.
of the muscle bellies. Um, in especially I don't know if it's coming through in photos as well, but in person it was very, very similar.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
had a great look.
Yeah. And then the overall men's guy, the overall bodybuilding guy was insane. I don't know if you guys have seen
Yeah, he's
that.
gigantic.
He's local to me, so
Crazy. Oh, he is? He's in Michigan?
yeah. Yeah, he's a Metro Detroit guy.
Yeah. He's this guy.
Uh,
Absolutely.
oh
Yeah.
no, I'm sorry, I was thinking of Joey.
This
Um,
guy.
yeah, this guy looked
Yeah. He won the overall.
crap.
He was he's like 30, 32, I think.
Is he?
Is he?
Uh yeah, and he did US he's not even that lean. But he doesn't need to be.
No.
Um
That much muscle and that kind of shape, I think you can
yeah,
give up a little bit of
yeah. Like
greenness.
he's in shape, but he's not
Oh
like
yeah, for sure.
razor sharp. Yeah, he did USA's and got like third or fourth 6 weeks ago or whatever. And he like didn't really peak for it. It was just
Who's
like a trial show.
do we know who his coach is?
His coach is Abdullah,
Oh, okay. Very
which I
cool.
thought was really interesting. Like an amateur in the US being coached by Abdullah.
Yeah. Maybe Abdullah just saw the potential in him.
Yeah, but he seems like a good guy. He's got a family.
Right on.
Yeah. I really wanted to go. I would have loved to go, but I was with family and celebrating my 5-year wedding anniversary. So
Yeah. Your,
maybe next year.
your wife's a little more important than
I
hanging out with the boys in Pittsburgh.
But,
don't know. Depends who
well, I
you.
guess you got to commit to coming to nationals in Dallas.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Yeah, me
Oh yeah.
too.
Yeah, I'll be
Cool.
there.
You have people competing, Mike? Okay.
No, a couple of my buddies have people competing, so I
Okay.
just want to go to support. And I just like going to bodybuilding shows. I like seeing good talent,
Yeah. That's awesome.
and it gets me out of the house.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll be at Paul's show. So
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Are either of you guys thinking of going to the Arnold?
I had planned on it, but I'm not against it per se.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean that'll be
That'll be right
middle,
in the middle of your prep.
so that'd be a game time decision,
Yeah.
probably. I would like to go. I really enjoy the Arnold.
Yeah.
Not so much even for the bodybuilding aspect of it, honestly, for the convention and like seeing all the
Yeah.
random shit they have to do.
Yeah,
Like
that's what I would go for.
the
Just to like
Yeah,
hang
like the jousting.
yeah, the medieval fighting and the strongman are so cool to watch.
Yeah.
out.
Strongman is my favorite
Do they
sport to
do they do
watch.
slap boxing at the
Yeah,
Arnold?
they do slap fighting.
Yeah, that's fun to watch. And
It's so
arm
funny the
wrestling.
Paul brothers get the piss slapped out of him like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you guys want to do some questions?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Paul, do you have one you want to do first?
yeah.
I'm
Let
gonna
me
pull
look.
mine up.
There was a bunch of good ones.
I have one while we're talking about shows.
Yeah, please.
So Zaid, if you know Zaid, uh, the pro from Fit Nation podcast, he asked thoughts on artificial sweeteners last 2 weeks of prep.
Oh, so that's something I actually recently changed my stance on. Um, so I used to think it wasn't a big deal, and I was like, it's one of those things where you're min-maxing, and it's just like not something to stress about. Um, but then I started reframing my thought process of like, well, if it can make a 1 or 2% difference, isn't that worth it? It's a week or two um of no artificials and even like some of the other things I start pulling towards the end or even some of the supplements. Those gel capsules or not gel capsules, but like the capsules that are packed supplements. Um too much of them can cause a mild degree of GI inflammation.
Hmm.
And so something I start doing in the last week is I pull all your supplements that aren't for sleep or for digestion. Everything else we don't need right now. Um, like your lipids and your kidney numbers aren't going to tank by taking a week to 5 days off of those supplements. But if it helps us keep your waist a little smaller, maybe retain a slightly less amount of fluid, then it's worth it to me. Um, Also, like there's going to be that individual bit, but most people I don't think are going to get worse by pulling them out.
Mhm.
Uh, but most people also will probably stand to get better. So to me, there's no net negative of pulling that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, I also think there's degrees of pulling it out, right?
Yeah,
Like there's, let's say you're at the end of prep and you're putting artificial sweeteners in some of your food. You've got protein powder, which has artificial sweeteners. You've got diet beverages, and then you've got like your pre-workout, your intra-workout have
yeah,
artificial sweeteners.
yeah,
Like maybe you cut out the beverages first, um, but you like keep in whey because
yeah,
it digests really well for you and it's something you've been using all prep and
yeah,
you're used to it. Um, and maybe like the last week you cut out like your intra or your pre, which has artificial sweeteners. I think that's like kind of a balanced approach to it. Like you
yeah,
don't have to go 100 to 0, but
right.
definitely don't like increase artificial sweeteners as you're going into peak week.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also with the diet sodas and stuff, reducing carbonation is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
That I definitely think should be cut out. Um, just because again, it's the chance of irritating your stomach and dampening digestion a little bit. Um, but I think like what you mentioned, the slowly tapering out also depends how much you're intaking. Like
Yeah.
I had a girl last year in prep tell me, um, she got to the point where she was not drinking water anymore. She was only drinking Coke Zeros. Um, so she was having like a gallon and a half a day of Coke Zero.
Wow.
And then the only like uncarbonated beverages she was having was her intro workout,
I
which
mean,
is
that's pretty
crazy to
bad.
me.
Not just from like the carbonation standpoint, but that's a lot of caffeine.
Yeah. Yeah. And so and she did get the gold label, the one with no caffeine in it, which is good.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I was like, yeah, that's not good. That's not a good idea. Like if you're gonna be, I know when we talk about artificial sweeteners, people always reference that one really famous like rat study where it's like they way overfed sucralose to these rats and got cancer. And I was like, look, man, you're gonna prove these people right. You're gonna become that rat that had too much diet soda and gets cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good
Yeah.
answer. Paul, you want to shoot a question?
Yeah, this one's coming from our friend James Fotis. Number one lesson bodybuilding has taught you, and one from coaching. Scott, you want to answer this one?
Uh, Number one lesson bodybuilding has taught me. You can care too much about every aspect of it and um, get lost in the details. So whether it's training, diet, drugs, there's a not just even like from trying to maximize results. I think there's a point of diminishing returns where um, you can overthink things and make it harder on yourself to the point that it actually adds stress and makes you a worse bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And I think, people get way too obsessive and way too maniacal about training. Same with diet, same with drugs. And like, I think you have to kind of find where that line is for you or for your client and on each of those aspects. And like, where thinking about it more is enjoyable or where it's just making you worse and taking up time and adding stress. So that'd be one thing as a bodybuilder. And then as a coach, I don't do a lot of coaching, but I have a client I'm helping out now. And what one thing I've learned is just over explain everything, and ask, you know, any questions. Do you understand anything that's unclear? Just clear communication is super important.
Yeah, those are good.
That's very good.
For me, the number one thing that bodybuilding has taught me, and this kind of translates to everything else from personal life to business, is that nothing happens unless you force it to happen. Like progression doesn't happen in the gym, in your diet, your physique, unless you make it happen. And I kind of used to subscribe to this mindset of like, oh, things are going to work out. And that's just not true. Things don't work out unless you make them work out in any aspect
Mm.
of your life. If you're not taking active steps to make things happen, then you're not going to get to where you want to be. And that's helped me develop as a person and as a businessman and so many other aspects of my life that have come directly from bodybuilding. And as a coach, I think I talked about this on my episode, but just taking the time of day to engage with people and not blow anybody off can lead to huge dividends down the road. Um, you know, people that have reached out to me on Instagram randomly out of the blue have become some of my best friends, have become clients, have become people that I can go to for advice, and that's been something that I've really learned through coaching and doing like mentorships with Dom. That was the big lesson that I got from him, and that's also translated across many different areas of my life.
Yeah. I guess for me, probably the biggest thing that bodybuilding has taught me is really how simple things can be in like your whole life. So like what there's this guy on Instagram, I forget his name. I don't follow him, but his reels pop up on my reel page every once in a while. And he always says like um it's simple, it's just not easy. And I feel like that's bodybuilding really to a T. And I think it's really, I mean, I fell into this when I first started getting into bodybuilding training, and then even more so as a coach. If you want to talk about hyperfixating on details, I was your guy. I was really getting fixated, like especially in training, about like different energy systems and how they relate to one another and how to like potentiate training blocks based off energy systems and this, that, the other. And it's really does not have to be that way. I got so far away from that now that I'm just one of those guys that says, okay, take a couple sets to failure, like train them really hard, do a couple partials, and let's exhaust this program as far as progression goes. So I used to be really think you had to nail all these really, really tiny details all the time, and that's where the progress came from, without really just considering it's really just like eat the food, lift the weights, and do that time and time again, day in, day out for a couple of years. And I used to like really get bugged out about those micro things.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
I think that people fixating on those tiny details is kind of a symptom of social media and the internet in general and
Yeah,
the need to create more and more content.
yeah,
And that leads to ever spiraling down into this cycle of fixating on tiny details that
right.
most people, it's just not applicable to them.
Right. Right. Yeah, like I remember I used to tell people not to eat fruit in their post-workout meal because of the antioxidants interfering with hypertrophy signaling. And it's like, yes, they're probably on a mechanistic sense, yes, that probably happens to a very small degree. But in the grand scheme of things, imagine thinking 100 grams of blueberries is going to outdo an hour and a half of training and anabolic steroids. You're like, how crazy is that to think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it was just getting fixated on those small details. I've stopped getting, and I guess it kind of ties into coaching as well for me. Um, less about making it simple for my own sense of actually being able to adhere to a plan, but more of I have become a lot more like liberal with food selection. So the way I write diets now, I don't want to say it's super general, but there's parts of it that are very general, right? So I know like some coaches will specify, like for Greek yogurt, for example, they'll specify the exact brand that you have to get and the exact style, even down to like the flavor of it. For me, I just say get one of those prepackaged cups. Any brand, any flavor is fine. I mean, the difference is maybe 20 calories. Outside of a prep scenario, it doesn't matter. And if that little bit of variation and a little bit of autonomy helps you stick to the plan, that's great. Same thing with like fruit. I just tell people have 15 grams of carbs from fruit. Pick a singular piece of fruit like an apple, a kiwi, an orange, a banana. The difference might be 10 carbs on those. But again, it lets you get a little more variety into your plan that helps you stick with things. Um, so I have tried to make my plans a little more user friendly, I guess, because I think it can be pretty daunting, especially for like lifestyle folk or people that are just dipping their toes into bodybuilding, to have hard and fast, you can't deviate any bit of food out of here. And same thing with like free meals. I did not give people cheat meals ever. I was like, if you're a bodybuilder, you don't need it. Fucking sack up. You can go your whole life without a free meal. And that's so ridiculous as an expectation. The second, it works for some like guys that are single. It works well for them. But as soon as they get a girlfriend, you want to take them out for dinner.
Yeah.
And I was totally neglecting that as a coach. I'd be like, I don't care, tell your girlfriend to deal with it. Um, where now, I have some people that I have taking 2 free meals a week, and it's literally just for the sake of their relationship. And I just say, hey, one of them cook at home, and then one of them take your girlfriend out. And I just give some criteria for what a good choice for free meals look like. So I've just gotten away from being super, super rigid, and I allow a bit more autonomy for people. I just find people are happier that way. And there's much less frustration on my end as a coach because I'm not spazzing that someone had, raspberries instead of blueberries.
Yeah. Good question. Thanks,
Yeah,
James.
that's a good one.
All right. Let's find another one. Okay. This is a really good one. Driving factors of what separates a good coach from a bad one at the early stages of their career.
Ooh, I have a lot to say on that.
Yeah, let's go.
Um, I think it's really obvious, at least from my perspective. It might be less obvious from like a client perspective. There's people that get into coaching because they think it's a money grab, and there's people that get into coaching because they enjoy the act of coaching. And if people have, if you feel like you're getting a sales script, you are getting a sales script. So there are people online that will sell you a sales script for you to use with your clients. Where basically they'll walk you through step by step, get on a Zoom call with this person. Or if you're selling them over the DMs, here's your step by step script. And literally you just copy and paste and maybe change a couple words. So if stuff feels robotic, it definitely is going to be robotic. Um, and there's a lot of people that I think raise their rates way too soon. Um, I know some like younger coaches that they have never coached a single client in their life, and they're like never even personal trained, don't have any background in anything, and they're like, okay, I'm taking clients, I'm starting at $250 a month.
Right. You don't have a resume at that point. What are you doing
Right,
to justify that price?
right. Well, and that's when it's obvious that it's kind of just a cash grab. And then another thing in their bio, if it's the same old format of like catchphrasey name and then 3 separate lines, and one line is like, I help
Is
whatever women over 25 or new college grads lose 30 pounds in 6 months and keep it off. And then there's like some generic thing under it and then their link. If that's what a bio looks like, you might be getting sold. You might not be getting coached.
Yeah.
yeah. And that really ties into what I was going to say is people early on in their coaching career investing more in business development than their education as a coach.
Yes.
I think a lot of people make that mistake. They want to earn money fast, but they don't necessarily know what they don't know yet.
Mhm.
And I think dumping a bunch of money into learning how to be a businessman before learning how to be a coach is a huge mistake.
Yeah.
And that's not to say there isn't a place for learning how to be better at running a business later on once you have the skills, but you need to have the skills first to justify the prices that you're charging, to get clients, to get results, because those are the things that make you a good coach at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people that are getting into this need to remember that this isn't the sales industry, like you were saying. We're in customer service. What
Yep.
kind of service can you provide to people?
Yeah.
That's what matters at the end of the day is getting results. And if you can't get results, then it doesn't matter how good of a salesperson you are.
Yeah.
People are going to see right through it.
Yeah, and if you notice that it seems like a coach is constantly churning their entire roster over, where it just seems like, wow, they haven't posted the same client more than once. I would look at that as a red flag. So like how well is someone retaining their clients? Um, if you speak to one of their clients or former clients and you're like, yeah, it seems like after 4 to 6 months, everyone just up and leaves, it's probably for a reason. So if they're holding on to clients for 1, 2, 3 or more years, that means they're doing right by their clients, given like whatever their price point is and the package that they were promised. So that's something I pay attention to as well. So I would, if you're thinking about working with a coach, ask to get in touch with some of their current clients. So you can get obviously as coach, I'm only going to tell you the best things about myself. That's the only thing I'm going to do if you ask me about my coaching. But it's good to hear from a client perspective, like, oh yeah, I've worked with Mike or I worked with Paul for a year and a half. Here's my experience so far. That's a really good gauge for figuring out as well, if they're a good coach or if they're just, money hungry.
Scott, I know you've been through a lot of coaches. What have you looked for in the past?
I have a few signals that I would say are red flags. One is people who never post about their clients.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people just want to hire, their favorite IFBB pro or,
Yeah.
their favorite big name coach. But if they don't post about their clients regularly, then that clearly shows you what their priorities are and who they care about. Um, the other would be um, similar in a similar vein of like what marketing tells you to do. People who just post tons of transformations and like only talk about the weight loss and like it just looks like a Nutrisystem, client success story page, you
Yeah.
know. Um, Another would be I think there's a lot of arguments about whether having a lot of clients is good or bad. I think, but a new coach who takes on a lot of clients very quickly before they've focused, to your point, Paul, on mastering their craft and education, I think that's a negative signal too. Someone who seems like they're just like trying to get their numbers up will say yes to anyone who
Mhm.
has money.
Mhm.
That's a problem. And then I would say this isn't always a signal, but it's something to watch out for. People who are have a lot of other priorities. If they're running multiple businesses, if they're like if coaching just feels like it's like the sixth thing they do, then that's probably not going to be a great coach.
Yeah.
We all work with Dom. Dom has multiple really important responsibilities, but it's very evident that coaching is number one or number two or number one from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
And he loves it, and he really focuses on that and wouldn't let his other responsibilities detract from it. So I think that's another signal to watch out for.
Yeah. On a similar note, the length of your check-in response is a really good gauge too. I have a girl that I've been working with for a little over a year now, and her prior coach would respond to a check-in like a week after she sent it, and it would just say, looks good. Like things like that. And that was routine. That wasn't a one-off, something came up. That routinely the check-in responses like, hey, this looks good, or keeping things here. Like, yes, not everything requires a huge response. I totally agree with that. But there should be, to a degree, asking some questions, commenting on progress, something of that nature. At least every couple of check-ins. Obviously, like I mentioned, especially if you're checking in more than once a week, it's not going to be, 10 paragraphs every time. But if you're constantly just getting, 3 to 5 word responses, that's kind of when you can start being like, okay, maybe I am more a number than like a client here.
Mm. Yeah, a couple more that come to mind are, I think having a little bit of imposter syndrome that you can still overcome is a very good thing.
Yeah.
Not being comfortable in your knowledge at any point in your career, but especially at the beginning, not resting on your laurels of, oh, I got myself a good physique. I know how to do this for other people. I think that recognizing that you don't know everything at every point in your career is really beneficial. And another thing is networking skills. Having a network of other coaches that you can bounce ideas off of and learn from is extremely valuable, especially early on. And I know both of us have been really lucky to have that from the beginning.
Yeah.
Uh, that's benefited both of us greatly.
Yeah. Yeah. With that continuing education kind of stuff, there's there's some people that you can tell like they got a good physique because they worked with a good coach, and then they're just kind of copying their system. So I would be worryful that if they're constantly always referencing their coach, you're probably just getting a plan that's been like a bastardized version of the plan that their coach wrote for them. Um, so if people really only reference like, oh, I got this from Paul, and every time I mention something that I learned or part of a plan or the way I format my training, the way I format my diets, if every time it's I got this from Paul, it's like, well, so why would you not just go work with Paul?
Yeah.
Um, like you should, yes, obviously have mentors, and yes, have people that you take some things from, give them credit, so what you use from them. But also you have to take bits and pieces from everyone that you have learned from and kind of deduce your own coaching methodology. So it's like, what are all your experiences with different, clients, things that you've talked about with other coaches, what you've, seen with other bodybuilders, what you've learned from other mentors, books you've read, things of that nature. And then you kind of have to distill it all into your own coaching philosophy. So if you're working with someone that doesn't have their own coaching philosophy, I think that's kind of where you get into the waters of they might not be a great coach. They might need some more time learning and refining their approaches to stuff.
Good answers.
All right. I think we got to do like two more.
Sure.
Sure.
Let's see. Favorite podcasts outside of fitness?
Oh man. I mean, it's gonna be a cheap answer. I'm huge on Matt and Shane's secret show or
Yeah,
Matt and Shane's secret podcast
it
show.
came to mind too.
Yeah. I listen and re-listen to a ton of episodes. I'm on their Patreon. Um, Another really good one is Joey Diaz's podcast. I really like his old episodes when he was still in LA.
Listened.
Uh, he's hilarious.
Okay.
I actually don't really listen to very many, or that's exaggerating. I don't listen to any bodybuilding podcasts anymore. Um, just because like it's gotten to the point where it's too much for me. I like to
Yeah.
just check out when I'm listening to podcasts. So I really only listen to stand-up comedy and like tangential comedic podcasts. Like if I'm not laughing at it, it's probably not a podcast I'm going to listen to very long.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite. I don't really go for comedy podcasts. My favorite one of all time is Mike Duncan's History of Rome, and it's like a 250 part series documenting the history of Rome from the founding of the city all the way to the Byzantine Empire. And I'm kind of like, if I'm gonna commit the time to listen to a podcast, I have to be learning something. I can't just shut my brain off. That's like end of the night activities. But if I'm listening to a podcast, it's gonna be like while I'm driving, or like I listen to podcasts a lot at the gym, like history podcasts or audiobooks.
Mm.
Uh, and I would rather use that time to learn than to just shut my brain off if I'm not doing anything else, like just doing household tasks, you know?
Have you ever seen those big like audiophile setups where it's like they have a room of just like big speakers and it's like tens of thousands of dollars? I want that, but to listen to my shitty comedy podcasts. Like I want a dedicated room with like almost sensory deprivation so I could shut my brain off.
That's great.
What about
Um,
you, Scott?
I've got kind of so Matt and Shane's secret podcast is great. Joe Rogan, just good
Yeah,
episodes. Comedians especially are hilarious.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I listened to a couple, this is going to be super nerdy, but I listened to a couple gaming podcasts on World of
Okay,
Warcraft.
nice.
It's for every
Um, and then I used to really like this, but they become like pretty annoying. And I'm kind of looking for a new one. I used to listen to a podcast called The Watch,
Hmm.
which is with a couple of the guys from Grantland.
Okay,
If anyone remembers that, it was like sports slash pop culture website blog
okay,
that back in the day that got shut down. But The Watch is with two like very, very good Andy Greenwald and I forget the other guy's name, but they're really good movie slash TV critics. And they go like very deep and they're very into like prestige TV, which I really like, they love shows like Succession and Industry and
okay.
everything on Apple
Very cool.
TV and stuff like that. So I used to listen to them a lot, but they've gotten kind of on my nerves. So if anyone has good recommendations for a good prestige TV podcast, hit me up.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, you
All
guys are making me feel uncultured now. I just listen to people like make jokes and I giggle at them.
right. Well, like I was telling Scott on my thing, I'm just incapable of being into anything on a surface level. If I,
Yeah,
I have to know everything about it and why I like it. So,
yeah, yeah.
last one.
And I've got a bonus one.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Fuck, Mary kill, incline Smith, incline dumbbell, and incline machine press.
Ooh, oh, that's easy.
So similar.
Yeah. Fuck incline machine, marry incline Smith, and I'm killing the dumbbell press.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm gonna marry the incline machine, and then it kind of depends on the day, but I could fuck or kill the incline Smith or the incline dumbbell depending on the day.
No way. I think I'm also thinking of like the incline machine press like at my gym right now in my podunk town.
Is it the hammer strength one?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Get yourself a vintage Cybex one and you'll change your tune.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Well, maybe in a few months after training at this new gym, we can revisit that question and see what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
I
I
think so too.
I would kill the incline machine just because 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a bad incline machine press.
Yeah.
I'm just going on averages here, but if it
Yeah.
was a really good one, then I would marry it. Um, I would marry the incline dumbbell press because I love it. I love the deep stretch. And I would fuck the incline Smith because it just takes so hard. It's like in the gym I train in, benches are very much a rare commodity.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Trying to get a bench and the Smiths are a very rare commodity. So trying to get a bench and the Smith and get it over and set it up, it's just like it's not
Yeah.
happening. So
Yeah.
I like it. If it's easy to use or if I'm training in another gym, I'll use it. It's great, but it's not feasible most of the time.
Incline Smith makes me feel like a meathead, like powerlifting meathead still.
Yeah.
I just like seeing all the plates. I feel like I'm bench pressing
Yeah.
somewhat similarly to
I
when I was
get that.
powerlifting. So
Well, you're
it's
also
definitely an
strong
emotional
on
attachment.
pressing, so
What'd you say?
you're also strong on pressing. We're
Yeah,
not the
it
same.
makes me feel good.
Hey, well, okay. Do you think there's a difference, a tangible difference between an angled Smith press and a vertical Smith press? I think there is. I prefer the angled Smith.
I've
Um,
never pressed with an angle. I always pressed the Cybex
If,
vertical.
yeah. So
if you,
in theory, yeah, it would be a little different, because you're kind of pushing back and over you. I think it's just gonna be a personal preference thing. I don't like the angled ones. They kind of irritate my shoulder more. But the static, just straight vertical ones, I can set myself up to like it's one of the only pressing variants that I can do that is pain free for me.
okay.
Um, so that's part of why I really like the vertical one. Feels
What do
really,
you
really
think,
good.
Paul?
I prefer the angled, but only if I'm facing the more obtuse side of the angle. So the angle's like, back and over.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
pressing
Yeah.
over your head, right?
Yeah. I remember that from a Jeff Nippard video
Yeah.
when he was
I've
talking about
heard
bench
you talk
pressing.
about it. I don't know. I
I,
haven't watched that never in quite a while.
oh, me either. But I just remember like 5 years ago or something watching a video and he was like, think about pressing
Right.
forward and back. And I always think about that now.
Right.
Um,
It
I
makes
think,
sense. It kind of does mimic the natural movement path of a bench press more.
yeah,
Yeah, it does.
I think it makes a bigger, so the reason I said I always use the vertical, the Cybex, is because the alternative, I forget what brand it is, might be Life Fitness or something, but it's
Mm.
got a bar that's like this
Oh yeah,
thick.
that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I don't care if it's angled or not. I'm not using a bar that's this thick.
Yeah.
Nice for squatting though.
Yeah. Yeah. I use the angled one for squatting because it is nice to like sink forwards. But
Yeah, that is nice.
okay, bonus question. Favorite baked good?
Oh,
Oh, dude, I'm gonna get some
put me
flack
on
for
the
this, I
spot.
think. I'm
Put
gonna
me on.
get some flack. I already know what mine is. Mine, I'm gonna sound like such a geriatric old man. It's mine's for sure an oatmeal raisin cookie, like without fail.
No, it's underrated. I think it's a great cookie.
I get so much flack for being 27 and preferring them over a chocolate chip cookie.
I thought you were gonna say something like even older, like a lemon
Like a
short
lemon poppy biscuit.
Yeah.
shortbread cookie or something.
I do not like shortbread cookies.
Yeah.
Someone does. I think my number one is just a classic brown butter chocolate chip cookie with the flaky salt on top. But Emma made these things one time that was like a croissant cookie, where she put chocolate chip cookie dough in a croissant,
Yeah.
made it, and it was incredible.
Those are all the rage on Instagram and TikTok.
The
There's like,
texture, like the butteriness, and oh man, it was so good.
yeah, I want to try one of those.
I think that's up there now. Well, we can send you some. I don't think a croissant would hold up well in transit.
Yeah, it wouldn't travel, but
If there's
there's a million places in New York that do it.
yeah, but Emma's are better. So
Yeah, I'm sure.
So true.
Obviously, Emma's are better. I'm gonna agree with Paul, but I'm gonna take it to a new extreme. So the brown butter chocolate chip cookie with sea salt on top, but it has to be like severely underbaked, first of all,
right.
because, and if you disagree, you're wrong. Cookie dough tastes
Yeah.
better. Cookie dough tastes better than cookies. So you want your cookies to be as close to cookie dough as possible. And two, it doesn't even need the chocolate chips. The chocolate chips are
Oh,
nice. I love chocolate chips. I would never say no to chocolate chips, but it's just the soft cookie that matters.
okay. Okay.
Interesting. It's an interesting take. I've never heard sans chocolate in the chocolate chip
You
cookie.
know, my father-in-law said that to me. I was like describing to him what my ideal chocolate chip cookie was, and he was like, "Oh, me too. Doesn't even need the chocolate chips." And I was like, "What?"
Whoa. Maybe you guys are onto
Texture
something.
from though? Where's the texture coming from?
Yeah, that's true. I haven't tried it. I just thought it was a
Well,
controversial,
we
interesting.
can make it happen. We can
Yeah.
make it happen. So, Scott, are you a room temp or fridge cool guy for
Oh,
your cookies?
frozen.
Frozen?
Wait,
Okay.
for what? Wait, what? For what? For
Yeah.
cookies?
Yeah.
What?
Stick them in the freezer every
You
time.
freeze your cookies.
Oh yeah,
That's like hot.
100% of the time.
What the fuck's wrong with you?
You
You
can
eat
taste,
frozen cookies?
you can taste any food that is cooled down, you can taste the sweetness better. It's
Right.
amplified.
That's why I like fridge cold, but I don't want to break my teeth. My dentist would be pissed off.
No, I like a warm cookie, dude. It makes me feel like a kid again.
Mm.
Warm cookies, couple minutes cooled out of the oven.
Do you
Come
like
on
your ice
now.
cream warm too?
Well, no, this is different. This is different.
Yeah, no,
I like the chocolate to be a little melted.
I
It's
like
nice.
all baked good, like a brownie, stick it in the freezer. Mm, so good.
So
Actually, I'm changing my answer to a brownie.
Okay.
I've gotten more into brownies lately, and a really thick, soft chocolate brownie that does it
I
for me.
got one.
when you stick them in the freezer, are you letting them become like a hockey puck frozen, or you just like let them get chilled in there?
No, I keep them in there and I take them out, and by the time I eat it, it doesn't like, it's not like eating a rock. It's still soft. It's just really cold. Maybe my freezer isn't as powerful or something, but it's not.
I'll have to give this a spin
The
because I
only time the only
I'm out.
time it's been too like hard is like Chase's cookies. Because Chase's
Oh,
if
his
you
are dense.
yeah, Chase's cookies are really good, but they're like very thick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when they freeze, they become like a block.
Yeah, they become a literal
Yeah.
hockey
Yeah.
puck at
Yeah.
that point.
But like Emma's cookies, you can eat them right out of the freezer
I
and
have a bag
they're
of them in
soft.
the freezer right now from Emma.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious if I can just go chomp
Try
on
one.
one.
Try one.
Throw one in the freezer. See what happens.
They're in the freezer. I have a bag of them in the
Oh, well,
freezer.
Yeah.
okay.
I think I have
Yeah.
like 2 dozen from
Wait,
Emma
hold
in
on.
the
Go test
freezer.
this right now. I'm really curious.
I can't
For
have, I can't,
science.
it's 1 p.m. I can't have a
For
cookie.
science. For science.
But if the thing is that if I have a cookie right now, the rest of my day is ruined. Then then the Uber Eats guys at my house 4 times between now and
How'd
midnight.
that happen? I happen to have a short memory.
Uh, yeah, it's one of those do as I say, not as I do type things.
All right. Good answers. Good debate. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anytime.
If anyone wants to work with Mike or Paul, I'll have links in the show notes, or if you just want to follow along, reach out to them. They post some really interesting and helpful content. So check them out.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah.